How DNA analysis solved the Golden State Killer case.
Joseph James DeAngelo Jr. was born on November 8, 1945, an American serial killer who committed at least 13 murders, 51 rapes, and 120 burglaries across California between 1974 and 1986. He is responsible for three known separate crime sprees throughout the state, each of which spawned a different nickname in the press before it became evident that they were committed by the same person. In the San Joaquin Valley, D'Angelo was known as the Visalia Ransacker from 1974 to 1976 before moving to the Sacramento area, where he became known as the East Area Rapist from 1976 to 1979 and was linked by a modus operandi to additional attacks in Stockton, Modesto, and Contra Costa County. D'Angelo committed serial murders in Santa Barbara, Ventura, and Orange counties from 1979 to 1986 and was known as the Night Stalker and later the original Night Stalker in order to differentiate him from Richard Ramirez, a later serial killer who also became known as the Night Stalker. He is believed to have taunted and threatened both victims and police via obscene phone calls and possibly written communications. During the decades-long investigation, several suspects were cleared through DNA evidence, alibis, or other investigative methods. In 2001, the combined acronym EARONS came into use after DNA testing indicated that the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same person. The case was a factor in the establishment of California's DNA database, which collects DNA from all accused and convicted felons in California and has been called second only to Virginia's ineffectiveness in solving cold cases. In an attempt to increase awareness, crime writer Michelle McNamara coined the name Golden State Killer. On June 15, 2016, the Federal Bureau of Investigation or FBI and local law enforcement agencies held a news conference to announce a renewed nationwide effort offering a 50,000 reward for the Golden State Killer's capture. On April 24, 2018, California authorities charged 72-year-old D'Angelo with 8 counts of first-degree murder based upon DNA evidence. Investigators had identified members of D'Angelo's family through forensic genetic genealogy. This was also the first announcement connecting the Visalia ransacker crimes to D'Angelo. Owing to California's statute of limitations on pre-2017 rape cases, D'Angelo could not be charged with the rapes he had committed in the 1970s, but he was charged in August 2018 with 13 related kidnapping and abduction. On June 29, 2020, D'Angelo pled guilty to multiple counts of murder and kidnapping. As part of a plea bargain that spared him the death penalty, D'Angelo also admitted to numerous crimes with which he had not been formally charged, including rapes. On August 21, 2020, D'Angelo was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. D'Angelo, now 74, used his knowledge as a former police officer to avoid leaving evidence and managed to escape justice for over 40 years. But he couldn't hide from the clues in his own genes.
In the Golden State Killer case, DNA evidence linked various crimes to combine what was originally thought to be unconnected offenses in different areas to be the crimes a single individual. Despite the development of single source DNA profile at multiple crime scenes, there was no match made a suspect and no matching profile found in NDAS. The Golden State Killer case remained unsolved for over 40 years from the commission of original crimes. The break in Golden State serial killer case came when DNA from the crime scene deposit by the assailant was further analyzed and compared to an open source genealogical website. GEDmatch, presumably GEDmatch, was used in favor of other ancestry and genealogical websites, as other providers had more restrictive policies on law enforcement access and GEDmatch aggregated data from these other providers, with participants moving their data to GEDmatch specifically to search for relatives. On the website, individuals affirm a privacy statement acknowledging their genetic DNA information will be available for searching for the purposes of being located. Upon learning of the Golden State Killer case, GEDmatch updated their confidentiality statement to include information that genetic information can be searched by law enforcement. Police investigators, with the assistance of genealogists, reconstructed the family tree that included crime scene profile, with match to a probable fourth cousin. It took approximately 4 months of family tree construction and investigative legwork to narrow potential suspect in the tree to males of the age and geography that could have committed the crimes. Among candidates developed as investigative leads, there will be, there will be those who may fit the profile, whose DNA does not match a direct comparison to crime scene profile, such was the case for a 73 years old male at the Oregon nursing home who had his DNA sampled and was eliminated from suspicion. While police had obtained a court order signed by a judge compelling provision of a reference sample, the man alleged, allegedly provided a sample with consent once investigators informed him of the purpose. The man's daughter was notified after the elimination and worked with the police to help them rule out additional people who could conceivably to be the killer. Eventually, the investigators narrowed their search for a male relatives fitting the age and description to Joseph James D'Angelo, placing him under surveillance. Discarded DNA samples were obtained without the suspect knowledge, including a discarded tissue and a swab taken from the handle of the car door. Once these samples were found directly matched those from the crime scene, D'Angelo was arrested and charged.
How genetic genealogy helped catch the Golden State Killer.
1. Profiling the perpetrator.
Profiling the perpetrator. Investigators collect biological materials such as blood, hair, skin, or semen from a crime scene. Those samples sometimes contain DNA that can be read through genetic sequencing, which involve cutting the DNA into the tiny fragments and scattering them over a genotyping chip to see what sticks. The chip contains microscopic wells with about 700,000 probes that each match a unique genetic variant, a specific sequence that may or may not be found in a person's DNA. Fluorescence dyes are they use to isolate the appropriate probes so a computer can identify the series of DNA letters in a sample, creating a genetic profiles.
2. Finding the relatives.
Finding the relatives. The perpetrator's sequence is added to a public database of DNA sequence, such as the genealogy website or GEDmatch, which you can search to find similar profiles among its 1 million users. Those genetics profiles are previously uploaded by the consumers who took a DNA test or sold by companies like 23andMe or Ascensory to learn about variants and might reveal a genetic predisposition to increase or disease, and where they're often distant relatives are around the world. Law enforcement officials are more interested in whether their reps is closely related to their another people in the database, as calculated from number of shared genetic variants. Your DNA is roughly 70% similar to each of your parents, 25% for grandparents. For each generation, since two people shared a common ancestor such as grandparents, their genetic similarity is reduced to one quarters, which means first cousin shared about 12.5% of their DNA. Second cousins 3.125% and third cousin less than 1%.
3. Building the family tree.
Number 3. Building the family tree. Unless your close relative are obsessed with your ancestry, it's highly unlikely you would find many first or second cousins in GEDmatch database, but you should get thousands of third cousins. According to renowned genetic genealogist C.C. Moore, investigators in the Golden State Killer case studied a third cousins. The traditional techniques of genealogy, tracking down records like birth and marriage certificates, census data, and newspapers obituaries, along with the modern methods like Facebook stalking, are the combined with the DNA profiles to build a huge family tree of people who might to be related to the perp. Those family members are painstakingly added to the tree, starting with the twigs of living relatives and then connecting them through the branches of distant ancestors. C.C. Moore calls this process reverse genealogy.
4. Identifying the suspect.
Number 4. Identifying the suspect after law enforcement agency have identified some potential suspects via genetic genealogy. They use conventional investigative methods such as comparing present physical features to past eyewitness statement and police sketches. This narrows down the choices to a few candidates. In the Golden State Killer case, some of the victims who survived his attack describe him as 5'9", 165-pound white male, characteristics that match the features of Joseph James DeAngelo.